Okay. So does the microphone work? Okay, well, let's get things rolling here to remind everybody our spiritual community is about fun. Well, what fun is that? And it's also about joy. And of course, we're about smiling. And we're also about being goofy. And then there's goofier. And of course, goofiest. We are about happy, goofy people. And throw in some joyous mayhem. And most importantly, we're about love. So as I contemplated this talk about Father's Day, I knew it was an emotional subject for me, and I wanted to design a talk that wouldn't make me cry. Of course, I gave up on that strategy immediately. So who is this father guy? You know, he's the guy you ask when mom says no. He's the guy that carries pictures of his children in his wallet where his money used to be. He's the guy that by the time he finally realizes his dad was actually right about some things, he's got kids telling him he's not right about anything. And he's the guy that's always yelling at his kids, "Grow up!" And when they finally do, he says, "You can't do that, you're just a child." Okay, that was the joyous part of the talk. Now let's get serious. So the question that was posed to me when I was reflecting on what the theme was going to be was this. What are some of the things we can do as fathers that will support our children to have a greater experience of life now? That got me focused. So we know that at the core of our Science of Mind heritage, we are expressions of God. We are expressions of Spirit. We are of that which is. We are it. All together, we are all these beings. God is all there is. And so, as we know we're God incarnate, for sure, we know we have access to all God's qualities. That means we have access to qualities of abundance, balance, beauty, love, joy, freedom, order, peace, power, union, wholeness, wisdom. Those 12 that you all have memorized. Now, the channel to them is the very essence of our being. However, in order to actually experience them, we need to have the thoughts and actions that support them. When we do, we experience what other religions commonly call heaven. And when we don't, we experience heaven's sibling, hell. So now, since we deeply love our children, it's our innate responsibility, and we have this power, to live these heavenly qualities so that our children live them and teach them to their children, which is our grandchildren, and this goes on for eternity. So that, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So I'm going to step through some of these heavenly qualities to make sure we understand what it's like to think them and live them so that we can be this heavenly role model for our children, no matter their age or our age. The opposite, of course, is being a hellish role model. And unfortunately, that goes a long way in teaching our kids how to be hellish. Then we find ourselves experiencing hell versus heaven while interacting with our kids. Why? Because we are role modeling hellishness. Hellishness. Is that a word? It is now. Okay. Now, the only criteria to get a lot out of this talk is to be present, not someplace else. So our first audience participation exercise, I want you to turn to the person next to you and ask, "Am I here?" Do that now. Okay. Okay, that's enough. Now raise your hand. Raise your hand if somebody said to you, "No, you're not here." JP, what happened? You're not here? Okay. Well, JP's a special case. Okay. All right, so we're all, with the exception of one, we're all here, and we're not asleep, but not yet anyway. Okay, so now recall those times when our young children would run to us for love, for attention, affection, security, safety, for an owie on the knee, whatever it is they needed, they ran to us because they trusted us and we were their safe haven. So this talk is about how we as fathers and mothers can live the Science of Mind heavenly qualities and continue to be their safe haven now and forever. That is a greater experience for life, for us, and for our children. Is everybody with me? Okay, now, you know those old-fashioned Southern Baptist sermons where people are yelling, "Right on, brother," and "Hallelujah." You're familiar with that. Well, now I welcome that here because I'm very extroverted, and extroverts draw energy from social interaction. Okay. I'm going to suck the energy right out of you. Okay, here we go. Now, we already experienced the heavenly quality called joy at the beginning of this talk. So what's our learning point, dads, that we can do with regard to joy? All right, number one, laugh at their jokes. Simple enough. Number two, sincerely support their sense of humor. Now, I realize you're thinking, okay, my sense of humor and my kid's sense of humor are just way divergent. But so what? We're the dads. We're the parents. It's on us. We're the ones that are the role models. So do it. And at least if you can't do it because you feel like you're being insincere and disingenuous, at least you don't need to diss their sense of humor or criticize it. And any negative body language or facial expressions is not what love would do. So don't do that. Think about this. We didn't do it when they were 1 or 2 or 3 years old. We didn't do it then. They do something crazy and stupid. We get down and laugh with them and carry on with them and be with them. That's us. Be those dads and moms now, regardless of their age. That's our responsibility to them. And that's our responsibility to how to live the heavenly quality of joy. So for the next heavenly quality, I'm going to talk about abundance. Now, this is an easy one because rarely do our children ever tire from being appreciative about giving them money. Raise your hand if one of your children has ever complained when you gave them money. Okay, we got 2. Now, is that because they complained you didn't give them enough or what? I didn't hear it, but we'll go on. So we got 2 exceptions, but in general, that's the deal. I recall one Christmas when I gave my young adult children $10,000 each, and they were ecstatic, especially my son who proclaimed, "I'm out of debt for the first time in my life." Now, we know if our kids are struggling financially, and we probably know the reasons. And we often lecture to them what they ought to do or not do to get out of that, and they tend not to pay attention to us. So we know that's not very effective. But if we remember our heavenly quality as role models, we have the abundance mentality. We let the river of abundance flow through us. We hear it every week on our closing theme. That is about us. So with this abundance mentality, you give and give and give. Ever since the 90s, when I started my tithing practice, my income, my net worth, or whatever you want to call it, has gone up way faster than the 10% of my gross income. So even though my net worth has waxed and waned with the economy, I have abundance from so many different sources. It's way beyond what I could have ever possibly expected, and it comes from sources I don't even expect, as we learned in Cindy May's class, How to Receive Unexpected Income. Our most notable spiritual leaders, Jesus of Nazareth, he modeled the mindset of abundance during his whole ministry. Now think about this. As he walked around the countryside, from town to city to wherever he went, to village, did he have an employer that paid him so he was fed, housed, and supported? Did he have one? No. He didn't even have health care insurance. But he always ate, he was sheltered and supported because he totally understood the abundance mentality. There's plenty out there for everyone and more to spare. He believed in it so profoundly that it is said he's fed thousands with few loaves and fishes. And he understood the law of giving and receiving in a very deep way, so he coined the expression, "Give and ye shall receive." At least I think that was Jesus. I'm not a minister, just a guest speaker. So here's the punchline for us as fathers and mothers living the abundance mentality. As the abundance role model, we constantly, freely, abundantly give to our children, and they become abundant themselves. So let's dissect this fundamental law. Give and ye shall receive. So we're the parents, we're the dads, we give. They're the children, they receive. We give, they receive. We give, they receive. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a one-way street. But this is the actual power of spiritual law. They learn from our behaviors, not from what we tell them. It is not what we say, but it's what we do that influences our children. We want them to be generous people, and they become that way by experiencing our generosity. Conversely, if we are stingy because we have a scarcity mentality, they will be stingy too. Ugh. Moving on to the heavenly quality called balance. Now, we've all heard about dads that are too busy working or doing something to make time to play with their children. We even have a golden oldie rock song called Cats in the Cradle. The young son keeps asking his dad to play with him, and his dad's always too busy. Finally, the dad's old, and he calls his son on the phone to ask him to spend some time with him, and the son says, "Too busy, Dad, but thanks for calling." The son turned out just like him. How sad. So the key here, dads, is for us to spend quality time with our children at every opportunity. Now, what do I mean by quality time? It is doing something with them that they like to have done with them, not what we want to do with them, unless they like it too. It doesn't mean calling them on the phone when you're lonely. It doesn't mean calling them on the phone when it's convenient to you. And it doesn't mean offering to take them someplace we want to go. Or it doesn't mean giving them unsolicited advice we think they need so they'll be more like us. We already know that doesn't work out very well. Here's a tool to use to test ourselves. Ask this question very deeply. Is what I'm about to say, do, or give to my child about me or about them? If it's about us, wrong answer. Remember, we're the role models. We want them to be not self-centered, but self-reliant. We want them to be loving and caring for other people. So every time we do something to, with, or for them that is about us, we're teaching them to be self-centered. The thing we don't want. However, if we do something with, to, and for them that is about them, according to them, then we are role modeling how to be loving and caring for and with our children. And that's exactly what we want them to be. So, Ellen, how do we always know that the something we choose to do with, to, or for them is about them and not us? Very astute. I'm glad you asked that question, because that brings us to the next heavenly quality called wisdom. Spirit's wisdom is always continuing to flow to and through you if you have this mindset, knowing that you don't know. Knowing that you don't know. So, dads, for us to know that we don't know means we're completely open to other people's ideas. It means we're not attached to our own addictive ego. It means we're very approachable by others. And in this case, it means we are listening to our children to understand things from their perspective, not ours. We listen to understand, not listen to reply. And when we do that, magic happens. Whenever our children feel truly understood by us, they invite us to come closer. That is, they invite us in what I call their sacred space, and we are honored to be there. If they experience us as being very respectful of their sacred space, they again realize we are their safe haven, and that's where it's golden. And they will often ask us for the very advice we so desperately want to give them. This time it's different. This time they're asking, instead of us pushing our thoughts into their face. This is when real, heartfelt dialogue takes place, and we're experiencing a caring and loving interaction, not a parent-child interaction, which has never been as effective and never will be. As a licensed parenting class teacher, this is the theme, the core of where I take people to in my class, is to be able to listen deeply to their children and understand them from their perspective and work with them. And when they do that, the results are profound. Now, I find that in this knowing that I don't know listening dialogue, my very mature and wise children have it right, and I'm the one that has it wrong, whatever it is. In short, dads, listening to them carefully and understanding their viewpoints changes how we see it. Then if I manage to actually be open enough to take and implement their advice, then it really gets good, because the results are better and the relationship immediately improves. Dr. Ken Blanchard, author of 1 Minute Manager, says, "Egoism is the most addictive disease in the world. The need to be right or look good is almost overwhelming." Dr. Blanchard also says it's counterintuitive, but the way to gain power is to give it away. And that usually means letting go of our ego. So when I take and act on my children's voice, I'm letting go of my ego, my mistaken perception that I should be the authority figure, and I'm giving them the power to influence my behaviors. Another way of saying this is I, as in we dads, are valuing their maturity as the adults that they are, and they deeply appreciate that. And it doesn't matter their age. They could be 11. You value their maturity, and they'll respond differently. In fact, when they actually realize that we're listening to them from their perspective, they actually think more about what they're going to say because they don't want to give us bad advice. Turning to the heavenly quality called peace. You've probably figured out by now that each heavenly quality has its hellish sibling. Peace versus war, joy versus anger, abundance versus scarcity mentality. But we're focusing on the behaviors and concepts of heavenly, because in the course of our lives, we've already mastered all the principles and concepts of being hellish. So we're not talking about that. We already know those well. We're just focused on the heavenly ones. So to be at peace is one of the most important things, because when we feel stressed out or anxious, we're not at peace. And meditation is one of the primary spiritual practices that we recommend here to give us peace within. And I learned a different one, maybe it's the same, but it's not called meditation, at a 12-step meeting, that as I practice it, and the more you practice it, the more you can be at peace on nearly a continuous basis during your working hours and during your waking hours. This person at the 12-step meeting said, I practice defenselessness. In explaining what that means, the person said, by realizing there is not a requirement to defend myself about anything to anyone, including myself to myself, I find myself feeling euphoric and blissful. Now notice how that beautiful articulation is exactly one of our primary Science of Mind quotes. We are whole, perfect, and complete just as we are. And that's an articulation of that. In fact, it's so well done, I'm going to say it again. This is what we mean when we say you're whole, perfect, and complete just as you are. I practice defenselessness by realizing there is not a requirement to defend myself about anything to anyone, including myself to myself. Then I find myself feeling euphoric and blissful. Very cool, but very hard to do. Now, if we're going to do it, we need to practice the second agreement of Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 agreements. Don't take anything personally. Really hard, but doable. Gandhi did it. Nelson Mandela did it. Read and understand deeply the Gettysburg Address, and you'll see that Abraham Lincoln did it. Jesus of Nazareth did it. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Talk about not taking it personally. Well, you might say, well, he's a little different. No, he's not. Not according to Science of Mind. He is us. We are them. We are it. We all have that power. Remember, we got the whole enchilada. We also got free will. We can choose not to take it personally. That's not what Jesus is recommending. That's not what this church recommends. It is up to us to not take it personally and be that thing itself. Okay, you get it. So, how does this defenselessness translate to our behavior? Whenever we as fathers have expectations of our children to judge them in any way or have expectations of them, we're setting them up to be defensive, not defenseless. Imagine how our children might feel if we refrain from having any judgment or expectation of them sincerely and deeply long enough for them to actually experience it. That is how we can be peace and will beget peace within our children. Notice, dads, as we uncover each one of these heavenly qualities, we and our children will experience the fruit of the heavenly quality as we actually behave that way. Abundance begets abundance, being joyous begets joy, and so on. Now, what grand gifts these are, and we are empowered by birth to bestow these gifts on ourselves, on our children, and all humanity. Thus, we of our own free will live in heaven or live in hell every moment of eternity by what we choose to do. Just like that, in and out, heaven or hell, heaven or hell. Anything's going wrong, you probably picked hell. Anytime it's going well, you probably picked heaven. So it's a very clear signal how the universe works. It tells you right away you're screwing up. And then what you do is you get defensive and screw up more. And Jesus got defenselessness. And then talk about the way you gain power to give it away. He gives away all his power, and he's got more power than any one of us in the world. See that? Counterintuitive. If you want power, give it away. Okay? All right, so love is probably the most impactful heavenly quality to our lives and those whom we love. So let's drill a little deeper, because when it comes down to love, the kind of the core of life, we say in Science of Mind, God is love. I want to understand this one with you a little deeper, so let's get at a principle that supports the clarity of love so we can see exactly what this means for us as parents to get this one right. Now, underpinning the core truths of all major religions in the world is a principle. Principles define how these heavenly qualities we've been talking about work. Principles are the underlying reality, okay? So easy way to get your head around this is look at the example of gravity. Okay, you can't see gravity, you can't touch gravity, you can't smell gravity, you can't taste it, you can't hear it, but you can feel it act upon you, you can observe its consequences. After church, get up on the top of this building and jump off into the concrete parking lot, and you will feel and observe the consequences of gravity right away. Don't tell them Alan told you to try it. You can see someone else doing something and observe the consequences of gravity, even though it doesn't have all these other normal characteristics. For instance, if I let go of this, gravity takes over, okay? So that's an observance. Love is just like gravity. There's no difference. Gravity just is, love just is. It's a principle of underlying reality. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can make love, but that's different. You can't hear love, but you can feel it and observe its actions that are representative of love. The same way I dropped the pen to demonstrate gravity. Chin chin. Whiny.
Whiny too.
That's the equivalent of dropping the pen in love. So now, we know that love is a verb. I love, you love, we love, they love. But what is the principle actually creating the close connectedness, caring, and bonding commonly associated with love? Dr. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, put it this way. Long-term effective relationships require mutual respect and mutual benefit. Like gravity, you can't see a long-term effective relationship. You can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't hear it, but you can feel it and you can observe its consequences. Anyone out there holding hands right now is an example of the observable consequences of a long-term effective relationship. You wouldn't be holding hands if you didn't have a long-term effective relationship. Of course, I guess there's an exception. If you're just dating early, that's a whole other talk. So let's test this principle. The long-term effective relationships require mutual respect and mutual benefit. In your mind, excuse me, in your mind, think of one particular person with whom you have a long-term effective relationship. Larry might think of Adrian, since it's Father's Day, and vice versa, but go ahead and get one particular person in mind with whom you have a long-term effective relationship. Okay, raise your hand if you need more time to have somebody. Okay, everybody's got one. Okay, now raise your hand if this person you are thinking of benefits you. Okay, I see some hands not going up. They don't benefit you? Or somebody's in a... Oh, there are some people out there asleep. Okay. Now raise your hand if this person respects you. Okay, and keep your hand up if you respect them, and keep your hand up if you benefit them. Okay, so all the hands were up for all 4 questions. In other words, the 4 criteria of the underlying principle, mutual respect and mutual benefit, were all met. That's why it's a long-term effective relationship. Principles rule. You get to choose to give respect and benefit, but the principle determines the outcome. Ah, come on, Alan. That's just a coincidence. A little trick with words. Okay, let's test it again from a different perspective. Now everyone think of a specific person that is in your life or was in your life that you do not have a long-term effective relationship. It's long-term, you know, in a long time, could be a family member, but it's not effective. Okay, get that one person in mind, just like before. Okay, I'm going to assume everybody has one. Okay, now raise your hand if all 4 criteria are still true. That is, they respect you and they benefit you, you respect them and you benefit them. Raise your hand if all 4 of those are true. No hands went up. Again, one of the criteria is not met, therefore the principle determines the outcome. It's not met, so it's not a long-term effective relationship. Okay, so here's the challenge, dads. If any of us don't have a long-term effective relationship with any of our children, then in order to change that, it's up to us to benefit them and respect them. And that means they experience the respect and benefit we are giving them as beneficial to them. In other words, our opinion doesn't count. Let me repeat that. Our opinion doesn't count. It's how they perceive whatever we do as respectful and beneficial to them. If they perceive it that way, then it counts. Okay? So now when we give them that and it worked, I mean, we do that consistently over a period of time, and it's not a very long period of time, you will see them actually giving you respect and benefit back. And you're now doing what love would do, and of course, you're experiencing the fruits of that. They start to love you back. Okay, so dads, in our heart of hearts, we're smart enough to know and respect how to respect and benefit our children. But if we don't know, because, you know, often there's some disconnects, ask them. Just say, Susie, if I did this, would you find that beneficial and respectful to you? She's going to answer yes or no. So that's how you can find out. So this is our calling to do that. As Gandhi so aptly put it, we have to be the thing in the world we want. If we want our children to be caring and loving, we need to be caring and loving of them. Remember the leadership cliche that has it right. Lead by example. Our great spiritual leaders over the ages, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Muhammad, Dalai Lama, Maharishi, and many others, are all very influential to this day because of their ministries preached and lived the very qualities that we've been talking about, these heavenly qualities this morning. So in closing, speaking about what love would do, a great example is what my daughter, Eric Olson, and my son, Matt Olson, have done already today. Leaving their homes early this morning in the Los Angeles area, they drove down here to be here for my talk. And I am gratefully... And I feel very grateful for that, and I will cherish it forever. Thank you very much. And I thank you all very much, and happy Father's Day.